There comes a moment in every life when the mirror stares back with a question sharper than any blade. Will you remain who you are, or will you rise into who you were meant to be? That question is the birthplace of champions. Not in the stadium, not in the spotlight, not in the applause of the crowd, but in the silent confrontation between you and your own reflection. It is there, in the stillness, that destiny whispers. Think differently. Think boldly. Think like a champion. Champions are not born crowned in glory. They are born ordinary, like you, like me, like every soul who has ever walked this earth. What sets them apart is not the privilege of birth, nor the luck of circumstance, but a decision, a relentless decision to master the battlefield of the mind before conquering the world outside. Thomas Edison was not the most educated man of his time. He was told he was too stupid to learn anything. But he made a decision. He would not let the judgment of others dictate the limits of his potential. He would think like a champion. And that decision gave the world the light bulb, the phonograph, the moving picture, gifts that transformed civilization. Henry Ford was laughed at for dreaming of an automobile that every man could afford. They called it absurd, a fantasy, a folly. But he thought like a champion. He did not see ridicule, he saw vision. And through that vision, he rewrote the future of transportation and industry itself. Walt Disney was fired from his first job for lacking imagination. Imagine that, the man who would one day build empires of imagination told he had none. But champions do not allow rejection to define them. They take rejection as fuel. They take the ashes of failure and build cathedrals upon them. Disney thought like a champion, and the world was never the same again. And what about you? Will you listen to the whispers of doubt? Or will you step into the arena of life with the courage of those who came before you? Champions live not by chance, but by choice. They live by principles carved deep into their spirit. Belief, clarity, vision, discipline, resilience, gratitude, and an unshakable will to act. Today, you will walk with me through those principles. Not as abstract theories, but as weapons, as tools, as armor for your journey. Because if you can master the way a champion thinks, then you will master the way a champion lives. Champions are not defined by what they possess. They are defined by how they think. Every invention, every breakthrough, every empire that has ever risen began as a whisper in the mind of someone who refused to surrender to average thinking. Average minds see obstacles. Champion minds see stepping stones. Average minds wait for opportunity. Champion minds create it. Average minds beg for certainty. Champion minds embrace risk. The greatest battlefield you will ever fight upon is not out there. It is in here, the mind. It is a kingdom of infinite possibility, but most people surrender it to the tyranny of doubt, fear, and hesitation. They allow their thoughts to become prisons instead of pathways. They rehearse their limitations like sacred scripture, convincing themselves that they cannot, when all along the champion within whispers, "Yes, you can. Rise. Try again. Move forward." Think of Abraham Lincoln, born into poverty, raised in a log cabin, receiving less than a year of formal schooling. He failed in business. He lost elections. He buried children. He carried the weight of depression like a stone on his chest. Yet through it all, he chose to think like a champion. He chose to believe that failure was not final, that setbacks were not the end, but the preparation for a destiny greater than he could yet see. That decision gave America one of its most iconic leaders, a man who held a fractured nation together through its darkest hour. Belief is the root of championship thinking. Without it, no seed will ever take root. Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve." Notice the order: conceive and believe, then achieve. Achievement is the fruit, but belief is the soil. Without belief, the dream rots in the ground of hesitation. With belief, even the smallest seed can grow into forests that outlast centuries. But belief alone is not enough. Belief without clarity is like a ship without a compass. It may float, but it will drift endlessly. Champions are not wanderers. Champions are visionaries. They do not live by chance winds. They chart their course with precision. Andrew Carnegie, who rose from the depths of poverty to become one of the wealthiest men in history, did not stumble into fortune. He saw it long before the steel mills bore his name. He envisioned the empire he would create, and then he recruited others, bright, ambitious minds, to help bring that vision into reality. His wealth was not the product of luck. It was the product of clarity. He knew exactly where he was going, and so every step he took aligned with that destination. Clarity is power. It transforms wandering energy into focused fire. It takes scattered desires and forges them into singular purpose. Without clarity, the mind becomes a circus of competing voices, each pulling you in a different direction. But with clarity, the noise falls silent, and all that remains is the steady drumbeat of destiny calling your name. Ask yourself, what do you want? Not what your parents want. Not what society expects. Not what fear suggests is realistic. What do you want? Champions dare to answer that question without apology. They write their vision in bold letters across the canvas of their mind. They see it, they feel it, they taste it, long before the world believes it's possible. Walt Disney stood in the swamps of Florida staring at nothing but mud, mosquitoes, and trees. Everyone thought he was insane when he said he would build a kingdom there. But in his mind, the castle already stood tall. Fireworks already lit the sky. Children already laughed in the streets of magic. He saw what others could not, because champions do not need permission to dream. They need only clarity of vision and the courage to act upon it. Vision gives birth to purpose. And purpose is the fuel that separates champions from the defeated. A man without purpose is a ship without sails, tossed by every wave, lost in every storm. But a man with purpose is unstoppable. Storms do not sink him, they strengthen him. Failure does not discourage him, it refines him. Criticism does not break him, it sharpens him. Martin Luther King Jr. did not march for comfort or recognition. He marched because his vision was fueled by purpose. A burning conviction that justice, equality, and freedom were not negotiable. That purpose gave him the courage to stand when others sat, to speak when silence was safer, to dream when the world told him to settle. That is championship thinking, not to live for applause, but to live for purpose so deep it outlives your body and echoes across generations. Discipline is the daily armor of that purpose. Purpose without discipline is like fire without oxygen. It sputters out in the winds of distraction. Champions understand that greatness is not built in a single moment of passion, but in the relentless rhythm of consistency. Day after day, hour after hour, choice after choice. Edison did not invent the light bulb in one brilliant spark. He failed over 10,000 times. Imagine that, 10,000 attempts that did not work. The ordinary mind would call it defeat. The champion's mind called it progress. Each failure was not an end, but a stepping stone. Each no brought him closer to yes. That is discipline. The refusal to quit, the refusal to surrender,